Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm the end. I'm the end. I'm the end. Are you ready to ride the Are you ready to ride the frequency? To ride the frequency? To ride
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to Riding the Frequency. Oh, looks like my mic is showing. Today, we have a very special guest. I mean, they're all special, but this one's super cool. Brit Elders is an investigative author and documentary filmmaker who traveled the world exploring a variety of topics, including the mysterious world of UFOs. She has participated in several in-depth investigations, including the Billy Meier case and the waves of UFO sightings in Mexico, which began in 1991 and continue today. The CEO of ShirleyMacLaine.com, Brit continues to research and write for herself and others. Welcome, Brit Elders. Hi, Brit. Welcome to Riding the Frequency. It's so kind of you to come and speak with me today.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this, Leanne. I think that all of these shows bring so much to people, and I'm really looking forward to a good discussion with you.
Oh gosh. Now I've been held to a standard. A good conversation. Here we go. We'll give it a whirl. We'll give it a whirl. Okay, what's a good talk without a little self-deprecation, right? No.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, okay, so I'm just going to start off with what are your personal thoughts about extraterrestrial life visiting our planet?
I think it's here. I think it's been here for a long, long time. I think, especially in the United States, we're just sort of catching up to the whole concept, which I find kind of unfortunate. But I've traveled throughout the world and I found so many other cultures and countries have an interest in this that it really is beyond the bounds of where we are now. We're just getting there. And we're relying on the government to do it, which I'm not sure we should, because it should be up to each one of us. It should hit our heart and open. It's something that I think is very, very important for people to look at from a personal perspective.
I would tend to agree, and that makes me want to bring up Dr. Stephen Greer, who, is somebody to whom I listen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I was listening to a talk 2 nights ago, and then I even took a couple of video grabs because, the things that he says are pertinent, but when you listen to 2 hours, it's hard to hold on to all of it. But, the government, we've got a couple of real, hmm, I'm just going to say it. We've got fundamentalist religious people in the Air Force. And I'm just parroting Dr. Greer now and what he was saying in
Sure.
2015 and before, and these people are trying to call the apocalypse so that they can go fly off in their spaceships, like, or whatever they think is, going on. And that's just a little kooky, to me, not to cast aspersions, but I just did. And I feel, right, it's so hard not to, because I think
But
there's
look at it, switch it around, look at it a little different way. Those people teach us something, okay? They teach us how to limit thought. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be expanding thought. So I look at them and I say, thank you, because you're reminding me what not to be.
right. They're your teachers.
Absolutely.
That's a very kind way, and us something that's in everybody's self-interest actually, to be able to spin doctor for yourself. And
Absolutely.
Brit just caught me. I catch myself a lot, but Brit just caught me. And yeah, you can turn anything around in your head. And that's not to say rationalizing things, but seeing the same thing from a different perspective and then being able to take something different away from that.
What can you
Besides,
learn?
right, what can you learn? Exactly. Well, I can learn how not to think and how
I have I
Thank you
have
very
always
much.
had I have always had this thing. I try not to think with my head.
Yeah,
I always get in trouble, but if I think with my heart, I'm good to go.
right. Well,
It
I mean,
always directs me the right way.
the heart is a very also, I talked about Arrested Development being underrated, but heart coherence is also something that's not a normalized conversation in society. I think people sit around a dinner table and have quite different conversations. So I'm hoping that by having conversations like this, in a culture where people do tend to go to YouTube when they're having insomnia fits, and there's just this kind of information available that allows one to give oneself permission long enough to have an open mind and remember to let your heart lead. So thank you for that reminder, Britt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something that's really important to me. And I think more and more people all the time are really coming from that perspective.
Well, they say that fear and faith are both, invisible, but you can't serve both and you have to make a choice. And, everything's really a choice. How one sees things is a choice ultimately. And that's what we as individuals are that's for what we're responsible, our perception, and when we
Mm-hmm.
have a government who for a really long time has been engineering society. And as long as we can make them believe ABC, then we can continue doing EFG and they won't know the difference. So discernment is an issue.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, the Billy Meier case. It's still relevant today, 45 years after the book. 40, and he's getting on there. When's the last time you spoke with Mr. Meyer?
Just got an email from him yesterday. He and I stay in communication. He's 80, what, 82, I think. No, older than that, 87.
88 maybe?
Yeah, February. He just turned 88. That's
Double
right.
digits. It's his double digit
Mhm.
year.
Yeah. And he's doing really well. He's still very centered. The thing I loved about Billy always when we were with him is he's a very grounded, earthy guy. He's just what he is. There's nothing pretentious about him. He's just there. And he's still that way. He's still that core energy of just being who he is. And I really appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this world isn't very friendly to people who are trying to be their authentic selves.
Right.
It's a world in which we're taught to conform from a very early age. Um, which I guess is also a lesson. And if you can remember before you take your last breath to not conform, it's a very freeing, uh, invigorating experience.
Yeah.
So I wish that on humanity. Um, well, so I just spoke with Dan Willis and we talked about Marcel Vogel and the
Hmm.
crystals, and I have one and I use it.
Hmm.
But you know, it's Pleiadians again. Those darn Pleiadians keep showing up, you know.
They have throughout history. That's right.
Exactly. So,
Mhm.
when how did the Pleiadians communicate with Mr. Meyer, please? And I'll just be quiet.
Verbally, they
Verbally,
literally conversed like we are.
out
But
loud.
yes, but they also communicated with him telepathically. The initial contact when he first met Simyasa, they sat under a tree and talked for about an hour and a half and just had a good conversation in Swiss German. But the Pleiadians have the ability to learn a language in just a couple of weeks, where it takes us much longer. They can fully get through a language in just a couple of weeks. And if they have a problem with it, they have a language translator that takes their thought and automatically translates it into the language of their choice.
Well, that would make me tend to think that anybody who's a natural polyglot probably has Pleiadian quote, junk DNA, you know? Seriously, like
I'm
I
sure
say
it's
these things
junk.
with a I say these things with a straight face. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm,
speaking with Barbara Lamb, and she's
mm-hmm,
all about the hybrids. And I said, really, if people want to go look at an alien, go look in the mirror, man. They
exactly.
threw down. So I don't know what it's almost like the human race has to prove to itself that it exists at all or something.
Well, that's a really good point. A really good point because, well, the Pleiadians openly say that they helped seed this planet along with other civilizations. So we're all carrying that genetic coding somewhere. But yeah, we do want to prove ourselves. We want to prove the physicalness of us more than the spirit of us,
But
or
that's so ego based, and I feel like it's also
absolutely
part of culture not recognizing that we're energy first and our rate
right,
of oscillation directly correlates to our ability to be well within our own wrappers, the environment in which we live emotionally and in our thought world and in our right heart thought intention. To
right.
me that's kind of like the Trinity.
It's a very good trinity. It's still something because we are in this polarized third dimensional world. We want to thump on things. I mean, we got to tap on it to make certain it's real. That's our level of reality. And we're beginning to, well, we have been for the last 100 years, but we're moving forward, taking it to a less dense level and a deeper understanding than where we have been. And it's slow, it's a process, but I think many of us are moving in that direction.
I would tend to agree because the quality of conversations I have with at least the people I choose to hang out with aren't about, did you see the latest fashion or,
Right.
yeah, we're in the business, but like, and please don't take this the wrong way. Oh, Hollywood, I don't care who won the Oscar. I'd rather figure out, you know, who my star family is.
Yeah.
I would rather work my psionic muscle. I
Mm-hmm.
would rather just keep to myself and just keep my head down doing the things that make me feel whole and complete. Yeah, and I feel like my heart feels if only society could hear somebody say that and not misconstrue it and then just again give themselves permission. And I wish that tech is moving so quickly, exponentially faster than the spiritual awakening, I feel like sometimes. So how would one counteract that? How, in your opinion, how would you go about balancing the two? Because you can't really get away from one. Clearly, we're using tech right now
Right.
to communicate.
Yeah, that is something the Pleiadians talk to Meier about a lot, is that we have to be able to balance the material world and the spiritual world. And right now we don't understand the spiritual world. We're just sort of throwing it up there and making assumptions, but we're not doing the inner work it takes because it all comes from within. So you have to do that and then step forward. But to not get caught up in the greed and the anger and the emotions that we translate into physicality, and to go to the love and the core and, like I say all the time, the heart and what that is, following those feelings, that gives you the ability to discern and to learn more about yourself. And at the same time you're learning about yourself, you're learning about all of the other things around you. And so that makes us so much more important to me. And I think that's where you have to start. You've got to just do what you said, put your head down, dig in, find you, make that connection to out there, but to in here too.
I feel like it's hard when children are put into situations by their parents, school, social situations in particular that are put in place to make us conform, you know, and a little kid comes out and wants to be their authentic self and keeps getting smashed back, but then doesn't quite lose it and just always feels a little weird because it's so strong.
Yeah.
It's so strong, it
Because
never stops. Like you just get side-eyed all the time. I mean, and I guess you can probably guess I'm talking about myself, you know, like I'm like a child. I like being like a child. I like being vulnerable. I like learning. I'm so excited talking to you. I talk to my birds. I'm not lonely. I have orbs in my house. Um, I don't,
I love it. I love it. That's what we have to be, is that
right.
trueness to ourselves.
Like I,
It's uh,
you
it's
know,
difficult for me, I have to tell you, Leanne, because I have that one side that is the investigative author,
mm,
and, and then the other side that is has that same freedom. I mean, every plant in my house, and I have over 300, has a name, and I talk to it.
I love
And
that.
I mean, it's just so important to me. And my little critters outside,
I know,
the
me
blue
too.
jays, the squirrels, the raccoons, I know who they are, you know? And
I
it's just,
know. I love
yeah,
this. You know, when I was
it's,
in LA, there was a bluebird. I was at the point where he would take or she would take peanuts out of my hand. And then it didn't show up for a couple days. And then it came back and it had no tail. I thought, oh no, what happened? Somebody got you, you know, but I'm friends with all my critters. Like I'm not
yeah,
necessarily friendly with the sirens, but you know, my one of my African gray parrots is on the floor over there. So she might
uh,
wander in and I just, you know, they're all fully flighted.
hmm
I don't lock them up unless I'm out of the house and then, you know, got to leave the kids in their safe environment. But
right.
I agree, you know, just being plugged in and like a child, but then the questions, but like your investigative mind, I kind of want to talk about that too, because how, if you don't have that and don't have any questions, how do you navigate the glorious divine experience of being able to discern and pull from the no thing into reality the answer.
Right.
So you
Well,
have to
the
have both.
investigative, yeah, you do, but you have to have that balance. And you can't get so tied up into your left brain where everything is thump on it and prove it. You have to get to the feeling, the energy of what the right brain can contribute as well, the creative side. And it literally is to me, being able to do an investigation. I don't care what it is, whether it's UFOs or whatever it is, get that information and then let that information talk to me on a different level. Take it from the thump on his side into what's it really telling me? Where's it pointing me now? It's giving me a direction. And it's a wonderful way for me to learn, not just about me, but about everything else out there.
You're also a creative person, though, so I think it comes naturally to people who chose to be wired that way, this iteration.
Could be, really could be. Yeah,
You-
because I have friends that are very thump on it, and then friends that are just out there all the time and loving it.
Right.
It works for them.
Well, I guess the way to go is probably to make sure that your inner sanctum and your relatively close outer sanctum, I guess your own space, living space, a safe space where you're free to be yourself, you know? And it's to be
Right,
hoped that once you leave your space, you find other spaces in which it's okay also, because there's nothing like being able to move about the cabin freely, to quote one of those awful commercials. It's
true.
true. Well, so I mean, I guess is the case still steeped in controversy? I mean, and how do you react when somebody says it's not real and
Okay,
you know,
it doesn't bother me because I have
It's
too
not
much to
personal.
come back with. No, it's not personal, but I need to know why they think it's not real. If it's because somebody said it's not real, I have to counter with, okay, did they investigate it? Did they take it to all the laboratories we took it to? Did they examine the metal with 42 different scientists? Did they go to the University of Arizona, Scripps Institute, Ames Research, JPL? Did they do that? Did they make a model, take it to Switzerland and film it to see if it had the same photogrammetric properties as Billy's photographs did? We did all that. So if you think it's fake, tell me why. Tell me how you know that. Because it can't be that somebody said it and you believe it. You've got to know it. And all the work we did, no one has duplicated. And all of the scientists we worked with, no one has said, I can duplicate this. Not a single scientist.
I haven't heard of anybody or anything even bothering to try. But and that said, like it brings me back to um having a physical conversation with a being who manifested itself in physical form, herself,
Right?
physical form. Like that's open contact. That is open contact. That's not closed contact. And that's not, I mean, there was telepathic communication, which, the telepathy tapes and God bless
Right?
that woman. Thank you, God. Um, but so this is a big deal. Everybody else so far, it's I was abducted, there's no proof, and then there are the little things, and Stephen Greer says some of them are my lab, some of them are like it just gets cuckoo. But Billy, right, had I mean, he's the first documented case of open contact where it was physical and audible and tangible.
And it was the point to that contact. They started that contact after monitoring him for 10 years. And they started it so that they could present him with evidence that could be analyzed, that could get us to realize we're not the only thinking beings in the universe. That was the bottom line for what they wanted. They didn't want anything else. They didn't want control of anything. They didn't want to interfere with governments. They wanted us to realize on an individual basis, we are not alone in the universe. And then at that point, when you have that revelation, it's like, oh, and that's step one. And where you take it from there is up to you and your lessons and what you need as an individual. But that was really key, was we're not alone in the universe. And they needed us to know that. And that's why they presented him with all that evidence.
What if I said this version of us doesn't know that?
Get it.
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we are just
There was a,
becoming cognizant of it.
but that's to me, that's so, I mean, just if I were coming into it without hearing sides and just walking into it, that makes, how are you guys just coming into this? Like, what is wrong with this species? And then that's when I say there's been interference. If all of our
Yeah.
pineal gland crystals were oscillating and at full throttle, like we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be beyond TV shows. We'd be like the Pleiadians, it's to be hoped, trying to help another baby species
Right.
birth itself conceptually into what it actually is. Because I think
But we're
it's conceptual birth before it's a physical manifestation.
sure, sure. But we are helping others now just through conversations like you have on your show. I mean, this is really important. And people don't recognize the value in what you do and others out there like you that are bringing this information out. Because a second ago, you said something really important. that you didn't have the physical evidence, but that you had an abduction. You know what? I cannot, I'll put it that way, judge any of that because it's not my point to judge. My point is to learn from you, to learn from all of the experiencers, whether they had physical hard evidence or not. They have something to share. And if we all took the position that we're there to learn from each other, we would be resonating at that frequency.
Right. There's still too much fear of other, I mean, like I say in one of my songs that the unknown is my friend. I mean, and I got that from Joe Dispenza. Maybe not clearly. I got that from a Joe Dispenza talk, but I adopted that and it's heartfelt. Like the unknown is my friend. Like the same thing over and over, unless you're trying to get a concept and be able to grasp it, the repetition thereof is helpful. But otherwise, how are we expanding if we're doing the same thing every day?
That's right. Well, if you approach life from saying, what am I afraid of? And
I
just
just did that
set that
today.
out.
And then I
Uh-huh.
made myself go do it.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I had to shift you. I went to a little screenwriting class down at the SAG Conservatory because I have this
Uh-huh.
idea and in this business we only have one shot, so I just want to make sure it's right before it flies. So that's it.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but if you just that little comment to yourself, what am I afraid of? And then you do what you did and go tackle it. Prove
Yeah,
to yourself there's nothing to be afraid of.
right. All the crazy things that I thought, uh-oh, going on the bus and then meeting new people. And what if these people are just like, what if they don't think aliens exist? And I'm just like, what are you doing? Just go sit down. Just stop.
Doesn't matter what they think. Right.
It doesn't, no, I don't care what they think about me, but I just always wonder about people. Do you think they know? It's like there's the wiring. It's like my inquiring mind is just fish. What? Oh, right. I'm in a talk with Brit. Sorry. Where's the fidget spinner?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I wear it on my sleeve. But see, again, it's like that's not anything when I was 16 or 8. It wasn't okay to be like that on a
Right.
set. It's okay to an extent, but nobody has time for that nonsense. Like, oh God, what you guys are no fun. Like, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's very true. I mean, we have a tendency to focus and to build these little boxes and then put ourselves in them. And we never pop our head over the top to see what else is going on. So we never have any fun with all the great things the universe has given us to have fun with. It's really
Right.
unfortunate.
It is, but see, and then again, these conversations, I mean, I'll say that's when the ego takes the lead and you're feeding the fear, like, it's like good Pluto or bad Pluto. It's not good and bad, is like fear or faith, I think is more accurate. Like, and
Hmm.
the vocabulary we choose to use, I think, is also a big deal. Somebody said, how do you spell your name? And I thought, oh, yeah. How do you spell your name? Interesting. Put
Hmm.
as many flowers and high oscillating good energy as I can. How about that?
There
With
you
my
go.
heart. I spell it with my heart
And
when
let
it's
them take
happening.
it from there. Yeah.
Something, it's just a shift. And I shouldn't use the word just because that minimizes it, but it's a tiny shift in perception that causes big changes. Truly,
Hmm.
truly. Um,
And it's very individual.
it is. It is. We don't all digest sugar or metabolize sugar the same way. Why would we have an experiential beginning to end the same way either? I mean, as much as we're singularity in consciousness and source and
Mhm.
fractals thereof, there's the weird trick. It's like we're all same part of consciousness, but we all have our unique iterations that, the gifts we have to play with this time, you know.
That's right. But that's what makes it so beautiful
But I think
because
people conflate it. and then it gets weird and they get materialist and intellectualist and forget the energy part.
And a lot of competitive issues
Well,
rather
back
than
to ego
just
again.
appreciation. Yeah.
Oh. Well, Dr. Stephen Greer, like he does the CE5 app. He's got
Right.
that and I've got it. So are you one to encourage people to use the CE5 app?
If they use their heart for discernment, yeah, I really am. I think Stephen's done a lot of good work. I've known him for years, and there are good things happening out there.
There are so
And,
many good things happening.
and rather than just focus on the negativity and the fear aspect, and like what the government's been doing, oh, this is national security, and they're going to come eat us, kind of an attitude. Go with your heart, bring them in, have a great conversation. I think it's something that we can really move in that direction in a massive way very shortly. Because just looking at the last, I'd say 2 years, and how the whole concept, especially with all of the disclosure projects going on, just looking at how that's opening the minds and the hearts of people is really remarkable. And I'm really honored to be a piece of it because there's so much going on and it's just out there for everybody. So when they hit that point that their interest is piqued, they jump in and they start learning. And once you start learning, you're in forever because you never get out of this whole topic. And it's not just UFOs and it's not just spirit, and it's all encompassing. It all interrelates to each other and it interrelates with each of us. It's just getting out of your way and looking at it from the standpoint of the wholeness of it rather than the small little fractals and particles of it.
It's true, our self-identification, as a few people have said, I mean, we're 300 billion trillion cells. Like not just my nose, my finger, my mouth, right? It's all these things doing this beautiful dance in perfect harmony with it. It's like you don't understand, not you, but the general public yet,
Right.
what you actually are. It's so cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. Like we literally all have the universe in our DNA.
Exactly. That interconnectivity is so amazing.
What do you think about consciousness? What are your thoughts on consciousness, Britt?
Consciousness can, I think, being of the moment with intent in that form of consciousness can be really good. But I think consciousness in especially this polarized world can split and can be very divisive and divided. So rather than contribute to that division, which exists, I'd like more people to sit back and try to understand where the other side's coming from, to really tap into the core of universal consciousness, creation consciousness, rather than to try to divide it out. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Do you think that consciousness is the like the singularity in which we're all connected?
No.
Would you call it a singularity?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I don't know. Um, I think it is a singularity, but I'm not sure that's where we're all connected. Um, Universal creation is what I get as the source and exists in all things, all ways, all time. I think consciousness is a spark of that.
I've sometimes referred to human beings as consciousness units to get really technical and
Units. Oh,
consciousness
that
unit.
That's an interesting concept there. Yeah, that would make sense because the connection is there with consciousness, but it's not utilized fully, and it is can be, not always is, but can be divisive. And it is individualized. Yeah.
Do you think that the divisiveness factor comes in when somebody's already fractured and been offered fear as an option?
Yeah,
Do you think that's and do you think that that's an external poke, or do you think that's,
I do.
Mhm.
I really do. I think the fear is a major issue. And I think fear is presented to us on a daily basis for our consumption, our choice, whether to consume or not. Um, it's easy to control people that are in fear.
Do you think that that's been one of the government's tactics, is to play the
Absolutely.
mainstream fear tapes just to keep us
Yes.
all cowed?
Yeah, I do for a long time. I think they're loosening that up. So, like I said early on, we're moving too slow. The rest of the world is speeding past us, basically, when other countries have a much more open attitude towards all of these things, extraterrestrial life, to all forms of metaphysical thought. And we're just now sticking our head up over that corner of the box to look out and say, huh, I wonder what else is there. We're too slow here. And we're beginning, but we're not there yet.
I feel like a lot of that ties back into the 50s, and I've said this before as well, like most of the contact that's happened thus far is closed, and it's
Yeah.
all telepathic. But if the receptors bum, then the
Mm,
transmission ain't going through. So do you think humanity
right.
is a psychic species?
I do. I think we've shut it down.
I think the government shut it down, but that's my personal.
I think humans shut it down too, because it's contrary to the physical, which we exist in so thoroughly. It has to come through the voice, has to come through the body movements. That's how we determine language rather than flowing through in thought form that is connected in reality on a much better way than words are.
When you said body movements, it threw me into eurythmy class at the Rudolf Steiner School. No, seriously, because his whole thing was doing body movements to words so that the children would fully immerse themselves physically and mentally in whatever whatever was being read, whether it was a poem or, I remember in the
Right?
beginning, God created heaven and earth and Mrs. Cress and the whole thing, and we'd all stand in a circle and do that's a tough one, but I think that there's
Mhm.
value. I'm staring off into space because I'm trying to decide whether I want to say and bring up light language, because that's
Yeah.
to me kind of like eurythmy with not English words, but it's before the word there was the sound, like,
Frequencies, right?
right? So it's not necessarily gibberish if you feel the intention and the emotion behind it. It's how
That's
you
right.
it's how you understand people speaking Japanese when you don't speak a word, but you understand what they're saying. If you're tapped in, and that doesn't tapped in doesn't mean special, it just means able to dump what outside tells you you're supposed to be, which isn't very pretty. Like, you're not pretty enough, can't have gray hair, you can't have wrinkles if you're a woman. It's like all these rules.
The social edicts of life, yeah, that
The
don't
mental
work.
illness of life, I think, is directly related.
Hmm. Hmm. Too much pressure and no reality. Yeah,
Well, and then what's the definition of reality and whose definition? So I feel like if we were all to, again, be psychic and at least have the option to communicate telepathically, so much less would be lost in translation when you have three words that can mean the same thing and three people who
Hmm.
think different things when they hear the one word, and it gets crazy.
So, Leanne, how do you
Uh-oh.
bring people? No, I've got to ask because I'm curious. How do you bring people to this space where they can open to that type of communication going on between individuals without the words and the body language?
If I were to give somebody an instruction, you mean how
Yeah,
to?
what would you recommend?
I would
Because,
recommend going into a space and trying to practice, like, okay, meditation would be the first thing. Like, there's a gentleman who took me through, or took a group through a meditation on one of these conferences. He's a doctor who heals Lyme disease, but he spent a lot of time with a Rinpoche.
uh-huh.
And so he talked us through this thing, close your eyes, get rid of your thoughts, see yourself in a space, and if a thought wanders in, allow it to wander in, and then let it go back out. And when you're all chilled out long enough so that the thoughts stop coming in, right? And this is how you rewire the neuroplasticity aspect. Like, people that have to
Right.
understand that there's definitely a scientific equation and proof. I mean, this is where Dr. Joe Dispenza and the Heart Math Institute are very
Yes.
helpful. Breath work is helpful because if you're focused on your breath, you're probably not focusing on your thoughts. The Silva mind control method, guys, it's not,
Hmm.
I'm going to control your mind. Ooh, because Leanne took the, no, it's about controlling the silencing of your own mind and putting yourself into alpha, beta, gamma, like being able to go through all of the states that one, right, in a controlled fashion, you know? But a lot of people don't, it's scary to quiet your mind. So I'm not sure how to take the fear factor out of the silence. Like, the silence can be really scary for people, but that's what I would
Ah,
suggest, is to try to just little by little go be nowhere, no one, no thing in the blackness of space and see what comes to you. I see geometric patterns against a black, like gold geometry changing is what I see when I get to that space.
mhm.
Running water, body's busy, mind is just, epiphanies come with the running water because the water carries information through the waves of its own driplets and dropping in sound and just the elements, being around the elements, being in nature, trying really hard to focus on the quiet. Like that's how I bring people to that space.
That's beautiful because it's a hard place for most people to get to today. And we're so wrapped up in all the busyness that's going on around us and everything else. Allowing that silence to not be something promoted by fear, but just the silence of the wholeness is so special.
It is. I was told for such a long time, Leanne, you should take yoga, you should meditate, you should this, you should that. But it took me, I said something to a friend of mine. I said, I'm accountable for everything I experience. And she said, how do you mean? I said, well, because I see it and I perceive it a certain way, then that makes me feel a certain way. And that's all me doing all of that. I create my own reality. And she just looked at me, said, that's pretty deep. I said, yeah, but it's true.
That's right.
Right. And as soon as I started thinking along that train of thought, it was kind of easy to start shedding the other stuff that I was taught. Um, that literally, when I tried to conform, it made me mentally ill. Doctors like, you need Lexapro. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'll meditate.
Hmm.
I said, well, if you don't want to take the pills, I'm a fire. Like, I've been fired by so many doctors. Whatever.
It's okay.
I'm still
No,
here.
there are other ways to do it, and it's
It
yeah,
doesn't need to be pharmacological.
exactly.
Why is it something outside of me has to fix me? I don't understand that whole concept is
You fix
whack.
yourself from the inside anyway.
Right.
You got to
Exactly.
work inside out. Yeah.
The pill doesn't heal you. You heal yourself with the assist of a pill, maybe, but you're the one That your
You-
body's healing itself. That's why you have an immune system.
That's the physicality of it. Yeah. But the other is it's all got to come from within. It starts right there and you work your way out. And you really just find that flow and it takes you on the most marvelous journey of all time, learning about you. Because every time you learn about you, you're learning about everything.
I think every
Yeah.
time one learns about oneself, one learns about everybody else too. Like not
Right.
right. Um, and the words, oh, what you do to somebody else, you do to yourself, really make no sense to people. Like it's intellectual, it's just words, but when you really start understanding how to love yourself, like until you actually do that, you don't understand how to love other people. And then it
That's
just
right.
becomes an intellectual exercise in once upon a time, and then my prince, and then what?
I just had
Oh,
this conversation with my grandson.
oh
You
gosh.
can't love anybody until you know who you are and you love yourself for who you are. And it
Well,
was
and
like, oh, okay.
it's funny though, because I've had the experience of being somebody who doesn't know how to love herself because I was
Yeah.
living to conform, right? And that made me crazy and it made me mean and it made me a hurt person that was hurting other people. But then when you go through the process and stop that, and then, people with whom you've had decades long relationships who still self-sabotage and still engage in that kind of behavior, and you realize, oh, and then you have compassion. I mean, again, I'm talking about myself. Um, but it's not anything you can be entangled with anymore. And there's a certain mourning process that you have to go
Hmm.
through a little bit too, like that's it's heavy a little bit
Now,
sometimes. But
I
letting
think,
go is letting go with compassion, you
yeah,
know, and then making space, holding space.
that's important. But at the same time, letting go of someone else with compassion, you're also letting go of an aspect of yourself with
Right,
that same
right,
compassion.
right, right. That the part of
And
you that resonated with that
yeah,
is no longer a part of you. It's a part
right.
of you that you can remember as a teacher, like you said before, and thank it for teaching you.
Exactly. It
Things
just
happen
is.
for me, not to me, is one of my big things.
Yeah, I'm way out of step with the world today, but I do not believe in victimhood. I think we choose the lessons that we bring to us, and that even when they're horrible,
Right.
on some level, you have to be grateful.
That's correct. I would agree with that. You ever seen a craft?
Yeah. Many times. Not ever in Switzerland. I've seen unusual things in Switzerland and been there when some pretty unusual lights were happening in the sky, but nothing physical. However, in Mexico, I've been there several times and we've watched these ships come in and just been there with film crews. Do you remember Fox's sightings?
Mm-hmm.
We did a whole series with them down in Mexico with air traffic controllers and pilots and everything. And we'd take them to this place, and the whole town would gather there to wait for the UFOs to come in. They'd show up. Everybody got their footage. I mean, it was so much fun and so exciting because some of these people just were not ready for their experience. And then when they had it, it was like, holy cow, what do I do with this now? Big, big revelation.
So cool. Well, I mean, that brings me to something Stephen Bassett said, and his trying to ensure that, I mean, I guess, look, people keep asking when's disclosure happening, and the more I hear people say it already has happened, I think I have to agree. Disclosure happened a long time ago. We're already post-disclosure right now. It's whether the mindset of the people is accepting of it or not is more the salient issue at this point, because it's clear And it's been clear, like it's not a question, are we alone? Like, are you still really asking that? That's come on. Come on. Stop. Stop.
And
Um,
if they are, let that be okay too,
yeah,
because
but
you know they're
that
just
being
not
said,
there yet.
people like you and people who have been doing this for a really long time, again, the public perception is, yeah, well, they were crazy then and maybe they're still crazy now. So let's go listen to the 20-year-old who's now on the TV talking about it. Like, wait, no, no, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, there are people who have literally died doing this. You guys need to make
Yes,
room, and I think there will definitely be a space to have some kind of. I was saying this when I first started watching Gaia TV. I said, "Oh man, we're gonna need some galactic social workers."
very true. Very true. Yeah.
So hang on, guys. There's a place for us all, I'm sure, coming to a to a town near you, real quick.
Hopefully everywhere. Yeah.
Right. But like, what do you do with people like Senator Burchett? I love him, I love him, I love him. And then he says, yeah, but then dadgummit, we gotta stop them people having them seances and calling them craft down. That's like a seance. I'm like, oh no.
But he's to
No.
point one. He hasn't made it past point one. He's if you're taking the alphabet, he's going A and he hasn't quite crept into B yet. That's okay.
That's
He'll get
okay. It's okay, but it's not good because a lot of people are listening to him and are gonna agree with him. And I guess that's okay. Again, everybody at your own pace.
That's
Got it.
right.
I got
Yeah.
it. I got it.
But this is why what you do is valuable. What I do writing is valuable. Telling stories, telling what's out there, what really happened. That's valuable because people listen to that too. We don't need to hang senator in front of a name for us to understand it or believe it as a public, as the whole.
We don't need, no, okay,
And we
maybe
shouldn't use
we
that
shouldn't
either.
have to. We shouldn't have to,
Yeah.
I think is a different way to put it. We shouldn't have to need a senator to announce it. Like this whole, well, what do you think, government? Like, no, stop. What do you think? You have to have an opinion without being
Mhm.
told what the opinion is.
Yeah.
Goes back into go into the nothing and the quiet, and it's really safe to close your eyes and stop thinking. Nothing's gonna get you. Except maybe
Right.
your own false concepts that are scaring you inside your own head. Like a lot of times, like you find that 90% of the things that were freaking me out were things that I was concocting.
Like when people worry, they worry about things that usually don't happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that joke, the guy who runs out of gas and he gets his gas can and he starts walking. And while he's walking, he's thinking about like this is practicing or mental rehearsal of what's going to happen. But his mental rehearsal goes sideways from the get. So by the time he gets there, he's convinced himself that the gas attendant is going to do nothing but, mess with him. So he just gets there, puts the gas can down and socks him in the face. Like, but people, right, exactly. It's absurd. The behavior of society is that absurd. Sometimes, a lot.
Sometimes, yeah. But
Sometimes,
then sometimes it's so beautiful too.
yeah.
And when you're living in that frequency, because it's kind of a zone,
Mm.
and you're letting life lead you, and you're into that heart energy, you don't run into many people like that. You
It's
run into
true. I
people.
mean, the water seeks its own level applies there.
Exactly.
People who aren't supposed to be hanging out with you won't. And if they are in your physical space, you'll feel like maybe an aversion or it just won't work out for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yeah. It's like what you said about how do I react when people tell me they don't believe the case is real?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not my place to judge either them or Billy Meier. As an investigator, I bring out what I find as information. As a person, as a human, I have my own feelings and my own way of expressing what I'm feeling. But that person that doesn't believe, I can't be mad at him. He shouldn't be mad at Meyer. And a lot of people are.
Well, nobody should be mad at you for bringing it to the fore either, you know. And I
Exactly.
guess people kind of maybe don't like that some people write books about. I mean, I don't know.
But there are others that do. And it's wonderful that there are those minds that are out there. It's like I'm doing a thing with Dr. Lynn at Phoenix Lights in a couple of weeks in Phoenix. It's incredible. I mean, Travis Walton is still talking about what's going on with him. Now, you got to realize, for your audience that doesn't know, the Meier case started in 1975, that whole era of nothing that was digital. Everything was analog. 8 millimeter movie cameras, 35 millimeter cameras. I mean, we didn't have the tech and the tools we have today. The same was true with Travis. Travis has gone through his thing. He's had his experiences. And all of this time, we've sort of been accumulating bits and pieces of information. And now that information is being brought out through programs like yours, through groups like Steve Bassett, Stephen Greer's, all of these, we are informing the public. We're putting the information out there. If they're interested, wonderful. That means they have curious minds and they're ready to grow and open and hit a new frequency. If they aren't, that's okay too. They'll get there in their own time.
Do you think the government's threatened by all these podcasts popping up, or do you think the ridicule factor is still high enough that they don't pay it much attention yet? Or do you think
I
that
think they're learning from all these podcasts. I think they're having to take a look at where the US really is mentally.
okay, that's a whole other podcast. I'm sorry. You muted yourself out. I'm sorry. I think you hit the mute button, but I think it's because you were coughing. It's okay. Ugh. Hey, Britt, honey, you're muted right now. I'm not sure what happened. It's okay. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're learning from us. Yeah, they have to be
You
because they
know,
don't have access to all of this information and they have to determine how they're going to deal with this.
well, but people like Michael Salla also, like a
Oh,
juggernaut. That
he's
guy
such a
doesn't
love.
stop, dude. Like, and like at first, even I had JP, like I was just like, oh, I don't want to be having a hard time with this, but I'm having a little, Randy Kramer, when I first heard him talk about the secret space program, I mean, there are definitely aspects of this whole thing which have
Sure.
been mm, used in the self-interest of secret, clandestine, whatever. I mean, even Barbara Lamb, as gentle and beautiful as she is, and she's so kind. She's like, well, those are clandestine. I'm like, that's a really nice way to put it, Barbara. Bless her. But like the whole hybrid thing, and then there's David Jacobs. Here's one of the points. I was listening to Greer. He was talking about how in the 90s he was talking to the prince Hans what's his face of Liechtenstein or whatever, who married his cousin, by the way. Like, and then they have 4 children, and I'm scared, but never mind. Um, yeah, I just derailed myself. But the prince of the Liechtenstein, this Mr. Mr. Inbreeding, only finances people who want to present this as a threat. So, like, if it were, uh-oh, what happened? I think, I think we lost Brit. I think the Prince of Liechtenstein was trying to interfere. I'm gonna pause the recording for a second, guys. What just happened? That's okay. I think the prince doesn't like me taking jabs at him.
I
I think
think my
he's
puppy pulled a wire.
Oh, that's okay.
Hmm.
That's okay. My bird is trying to demolish my carpet, so I guess we're even. Come here, Diva. Um, but yeah, but so the Prince of Liechtenstein is only financing with his millions and billions and trillions of lions and tigers and bears, the people who are gonna make aliens the bad guy. So
Right.
how do you like this is like if Barbara Lamb wants money, don't be going to Liechtenstein because you think the hybrids are cool. Like David Jacobs. Like, and when I heard that, I thought, oh, that's why David's on about it. Cuckoo, because he's getting paid to tell everybody they're crazy and the aliens are bad and the hybrids are gonna take over the earth. Like, look back to my other comment. We are hybrids. We already have taken over the earth. What are you talking about, Willis? Stop it. So at what point does the light bulb go off?
Oh boy. Hmm. Does it ever
All
go off
right.
all the
I,
way?
it, do- I don't know. That's somebody said. Like, I don't know how to refer to stuff unless it comes back to my own experience. I wrote a song recently called Oubliette,
Ooh,
right? Here in my oubliette, day after day, wandering, wandering, wandering. But then the refrain is, I hear the sounds of freedom. Um, and I'm the only one who can set myself free. And it's by getting rid of these preconceived notions,
hmm.
right? That's the light bulb.
That's it.
So,
And there's nothing else really. That's it.
wow. Well, what are you doing besides going to is it Arizona, did you say? To the next
Phoenix. Yeah, the Phoenix Lights
Can you
Conference.
talk to about that a little bit?
Travis will be there, Jim Delatoso, a ranger from the Navajo Nation, and Dr. Lynn. She had the experience. It's the anniversary, and every year she holds this great conference. It's wonderful. Then in April, I'm at the Arkansas conference, the Ozark conference, and then I've been invited to McMinnville. So they've got me bouncing all over the place.
Well, I'm glad I got a second with you because your dance card seems pretty full there, lady.
It has been. It really has been, which is good. I mean, we're having a chance to really explore all kinds of things.
You know, again, this is a choice, but you've been at this for such a long time. How many times, and clearly it hasn't gotten you because you're still here and we're talking. How many times just right, how many times have you just gotten so bummed and just like, I can't anymore. This is just like, oh, have you ever
Oh,
gotten to that point? And
no,
because you're
no. My
still,
curiosity is, first of all, we have never been threatened. Our investigation has never been threatened. We worked at government labs. We were just so fortunate. They want to know as much as we want to know because they don't understand the public. Um, I have never gotten bored with this. I learn something from it every day. I learn from every person I speak to, every person I hear. No, there's so much out there and so much that needs to be shared. And in the process of sharing that, whether it's at a conference or on a podcast or whatever it is, people are having access to things they haven't had access to before. I mean, podcasts have been going on. I know Shirley and I had one for years, but and we talked about a lot of interesting topics on that for 20 years. But now it's kind of like the door has not just been squeaked open a little bit, it has been thrown open. And here we are. This is what we've got to say. Take what you will from it, learn from it, and then keep going. Don't stop.
expand. We're here to expand.
Absolutely.
I think expansion of experience and concepts is probably the most exciting thing any consciousness unit could engage in, truly.
Yeah. And you can't stop. I mean, you almost have to make a point of learning something new every day. And if you do that, you're really being responsible for yourself. But there's just so much out there. And it's not just extraterrestrial life, it's inner life, it's heart life, and how it all interacts together. And it's just so important to have that connection to self and then that connection to everybody else. It's remarkable. We're living in a wonderful time.
Yeah, we
It may
are.
seem crazy and hectic and warrior-like, but it truly is a wonderful time.
It's a very special time. I feel like there's the potential in our lifetime of seeing at least, you know, at least the cervix dilating, if not a birth of some kind.
We might actually get birthed. Good.
It's a centimeter. It's about a centimeter,
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh man. See, now I want to say something twisted, like if only the mucus plug would come out. But okay. Sorry. Sorry. That was terrible. Any woman who's given birth will understand that. People who haven't, don't worry about it. Just
Yeah,
fast
that's on the
forward.
physicality of it. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, um, I think there was one more question I may have had. Do you have any more questions for me? I know you kind of flipped it on me before.
But I'm sorry, but
Ask it.
I love the exchange. I love the
No,
thought. I love the,
don't be.
back and forth and explore together. I think
Me
that's,
too. I'm happy that you asked me questions. Like it's just not typical,
I
which is
know.
fine. But like I'm atypical, so why would my interviews be typical?
I'm not normal either, so don't
Thank
worry
God.
about that. I mean,
Right, exactly.
I love to learn from other people. It's just so important to me. And it doesn't matter if I'm ghostwriting a book for them or editing a book for them or writing my own book or whatever I'm doing, investigating something. That discussion feeds me. It tells me something. And every person opens a little part of me that is really important. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact you let me ask you a question,
Oh my
which
gosh.
I
No,
normally don't do. Yeah.
I'm happy to take any of your questions. I just don't feel like I have, as far as experiencing, I mean, I'm literally fast tracking. I came home to take care of my mom in 2019 and literally got off the merry-go-round, got onto Gaia, started watching about interviews with interdimensionals or extra dimensionals, and I thought, oh man, this explains a lot. And then my artwork got weird. Then I started getting obsessed with making geometry, like, some people in movies build things. I make geometry obsessively. And then faces start coming out. Like I don't argue with my
Okay.
art. My art, it tells my hand. My hand doesn't.
Sure.
So, um, but you know, going back to Michael Sala and some of his guests, like we've got Elena Denon. Personally, I love everything she says.
Mhm.
People have a real problem with it still sometimes. What do you mean you go to spaceships regularly?
But you know what? It doesn't matter what other people, where
Think,
they're at.
right.
But still, even if she wasn't on a spaceship, what are you learning from her? That's what I tell people to listen to.
To be your authentic self and tell your truth
Mm,
no matter what
yeah,
the world reflects back at you. Because knowing is knowing.
not believing, it's
Right.
knowing.
Well,
Big
see,
difference.
and there it is. Believing is biblical, thinking is some kind of tangible evidence, but knowing is knowing. Three different things.
Yeah.
Three different things.
And really important different things. because they take you to different levels in your own growth.
Did you start meditating at a certain time in your life? Were you a
And
meditator?
I was so lucky, really lucky. My dad was literally, he designed rocket ships with Werner von Braun.
Oh
Okay.
gosh.
My mom, when I was 8 years old, gave me Ruth Montgomery, Edgar Casey,
Mm,
all of these books, Rudolf Steiner,
mm.
and said, read and learn and then follow. That's all she said. So every holiday, birthday, Christmas, whatever, I got a whole new set of different books
That
by
is so
different
cool.
people. Yeah, it was great having both sides play that way.
Yeah, I'm in a generation that, like, the TV was there. So I learned more
Um,
by watching and hearing because
yeah.
that's kind of how I was. It's very hard to get me to sit still and read, but when I do
Boy,
find something like Seth Speaks, I found that at like
yeah.
19 years old and I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Mind you, I was raised by a very erudite, brilliant woman. So if I have a good vocabulary, it's because I was, surrounded by people who had, multi-syllable words coming out of their mouths, which I actually understood, you know. My mom had me speaking two languages fluently by the time I was 3,
It's wonderful.
kind of thing. So like I was also fortunate to have a very minded mom who understood that having an open mind would make a less limited experience, right? Um, so from that aspect, and we weren't really religious, so I got to make up my own mind about
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. My parents told me go out, go to every church. If you find one that works for you, great. If you don't, that's great too. I mean, they were never, you have to do this, this, or this. But my mom was intuitive, very psychic. Um,
Are you?
I just, yeah, quite a bit. But she was just such a blessing to me growing up to open my mind to all of this stuff because I thought, first of all, this was normal for everybody.
Mm,
So when I
mm.
started talking to my friends about, oh, yeah, this guy Rudolf Steiner, he's talking about, and we get into past lives and da 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 da. And they went, what? And it was, I'm 8 years old and
But
going
was there
through
at
this.
least one friend who listened and didn't say what? Was there anybody?
No, no. My mom was the
Yeah.
only person that openly just said, well, what are you thinking about that? And what do you have a reaction to? Well, I had um, some astral experiences I told her about before I started reading all of this. So she got me into the Casey stuff and read and know and just move yourself forward with that for a while. And then when I was in high school, I found more and more people were open to it. When I got into college, more and more people were open to it. As I got into life, um,
Yeah.
my husband and I had a company that was very, in that box again. And we dealt with bankers and financial institutions and Fortune 500 companies. You didn't talk to people like that about this.
Right.
Didn't happen.
No, because
You
you were weird.
whispered UFO back in those days. You did not openly at a dinner, at a party, say, has anybody ever seen a UFO? You didn't
Yeah.
do that. We've come a
Uh,
long way.
well, and now with the drones and the orbs and all of this stuff coming out, we're definitely having some kind of like I don't like using the word incursion. I like Steve's word. We're having UFO flaps,
Yeah, yeah, right.
right? It's
That's a
it's
good
a,
one.
it's a lot more gentle a word,
Yeah.
you know, and less fear baity.
Mhm.
Well, so what do you see being in a post-open contact? How do you feel about like timing? Do you think there'll be open contact before 2030? Do you
Before
feel?
2030, yeah, I do. I do.
And do you
And
think it'll be the Pleiadians or do you think it'll be
I think it'll be many different groups. I don't think it'll be just one group.
Then do you
I
think
think
it'll
there'll
be
be many.
groups that look more humanoid so as not to freak us all out, or do you think that they'll
I
send
think
an
it'll
array?
start that way, but I think the others that don't look so human will come in and follow. And we will then be receptive to whatever. But I don't think it's to save us. I don't think it's to basically take us under their wings and teach us and mold us or any of that. It's to share and to learn from each other and to help us get out of this frequency that we are stuck in.
Right,
I
because if
think
everything's
that's a
energy,
lot.
it's a frequency. It's
Yeah.
definitely a frequency. So, hence the title of my podcast, because we're
Yeah.
all riding a frequency. We are. We're riding our own individual frequential
Hmm.
waveform, and it collapses into what we truly believe. That's where believe, like if you have a belief system, that's what'll collapse around you,
Right.
right? So it's important to differentiate between belief, thinking, and knowing,
Mhm.
even from a spiritual, cosmic, energetic level. Anyway.
Yeah, because belief takes you to one space and then the brain kicks in, but it doesn't get you to knowing. I mean, knowing is where you're really doing the inner work. And that's where you start hitting that connection to creation, to the divine, to the universe, whatever you want to call it, that we all exist within.
This might be a silly question if there are such things. Have
No,
you have you read, and I'm gonna guess yes, but it's a guess. Hermetic Principles, the Kabbalion. How many times have you gone through that?
I haven't finished it.
Really?
Yeah. Picked it up, started it, got sidetracked, finished a couple other books, got into a great course that was coming out of Germany on just maintaining the material physical balance with the spiritual.
Mhm.
And I never finished it. I never got back to it.
How far did you get? Or do you not remember?
Not that far. Not that far.
Well, for me, like I said, audiobooks.
Yeah.
Mitch
That'd be the
Horowitz.
smartest thing for me to do too. Yeah.
Well, it just allows me to consume more, like while I'm doing dishes. If I can't sit down and read a book, then at least I can listen to it,
Yeah.
right? And that also is a way of keeping the repetitive thoughts about 3D life from seeping in, because if you've got information coming in that is in your self-interest for expansion and growth, then there's little space for the other nonsense to come in and start messing with you.
Yeah.
So, if we're going to be in a big screen in every room kind of world, then I've got Greg Braden in one, Eric Cartoli in another,
There
Michael
you
Sala
go.
going on, and then, yeah, Joe Dispenza. So no matter what room I walk into, I'm getting coherence.
That's great. That is
It's
really
kind of a
great.
preemptive strike, I mean, if you know yourself, there are ways of getting around, being penetrated with stuff.
Exterior.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're a busy lady. I probably have other questions, but maybe we should just save this and come back and talk again in a few months,
I
six
like that.
months, to see if anything has changed out in the world and what's been going on. Um, so my last question is, are you going to be in New York doing anything anytime soon?
No, not
No.
planned. But
Okay.
if I am, I'll let you know.
Please do. I would love to buy you a cup of tea or have a
Oh,
little
Leah, it'd be great just to sit and
meditation.
talk with
Yeah.
you.
It
Yeah.
would be great to just sit down and be quiet and silent with you.
There you go. I like that.
Anybody who knows me was
Little
probably
word here.
saying, "Wait, what did she just say? She wants to be silent?"
Best way to communicate.
Well, there you go. In my book. All right. Well, Britt, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I
Uh,
really appreciate
it
you.
has been a joy. I've thoroughly loved it. I love the discourse. It's great.
I do too. All right, guys. See you next time, and thanks for riding the frequency with us. You think? Oh, hi. No, Steva Bird was telling me what she thought about Brit Elders. She likes Brit. I like Brit. We like Brit. I like Brit. Another great talk. Go grab a copy of Brit's book if you're so inclined. I'll put all the links down there or somewhere in the description, and we'll see you next time. Keep riding the frequency, and remember, you're the awareness.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you one?
Frequency, frequency, frequency. I'm the end. I'm the end. I'm the end. Are you ready to ride the frequency? Are you ready to ride the frequency? To ride the frequency?